Supposed to be 150, 150. What is Legends? You don't know what Legends is? Legends is a mode of play in Dwarf Fortress. It's not really, well, not really a mode of play, but that's good. That's a heck of a lot better than a lot of countries, Kravicus. I've heard that a lot of those ex-Soviet countries have very good internet, actually. Cyrlac, what up? Very lurks, man. Hope you're having a good weekend. All right, so let's just start playing. And we just need to pick a world. We're going to do region 15. And then we're going to go to Legends. It went whoosh for a second there, Zerkus. Was around 70 up and down? Yeah, I mean, that's better internet than most Canadians have. It's better internet than the vast majority of the people in North America have. All right, so this, we'll just look at the map real quick. This is our world map. Actually, no, I don't like this world all that much. Although it does have kind of a little human faction over to the right. Let's go to the other world. I like the other world that I have much more. I think it's region 16. Good price and speed-wise, yeah. I mean, that's all that you can really ask for is to be good price and speed-wise. Yeah, this was the interesting ones. Because this one had a whole bunch of different ages of myth and legends. All right, so this world is one of the two worlds I generated while interviewing Tarn. If I look over at the historical maps, this is the actual world map. And the reason I like this world so much is up at the top, up here, up in the north, is where the majority of dwarves spawn. And they end up taking over this entire mountain range up here as almost a dwarven stronghold, if you will. Like, this whole mountain range, including areas that traditionally players playing Dwarf Fortress wouldn't actually be able to embark. Also, shoutouts to these kobolds up here. Up in the fucking glaciers. Interesting. But all over the place here we have quite a variety. And then the goblins are like down here, and they end up taking down out over this entire... It's not even an... Oh, I read that as island. I mean, it's like the Northern Dwarven continent. Yeah, it's like the Northern Dwarven blockade almost. The goblins just like fucking take over this entire lower half here. They fight their way up into the mountains for a bit, but eventually get forced out of the mountains and just down into this like valley area. It's fucking cool. But they also take over the north area. Down here we have this huge barricade, the barricaded realms, which is all human as far as I can tell. And then over here we have another cobalt faction. And then down here is all evil. We got necromancers and goblins and the second oaks and the fragrance of amethyst. Lot of elves down there too. Goblins and elves down in the lower continent. But then this area over here is going to remain basically untouched, and we're going to have this cobalt faction over here. Frogo Fugo Glyn, which is remains basically untouched most of the time. We need to explore those kobolds' history. I mean, which one is this? Yeah, Lidlokar. They seem to be like all by themselves. Maybe even on an island. Yeah, that might actually be an island. In the fucking far north. Yeah, see, the goblins just like kind of get eviscerated in the center here by the kind of combination of the humans and the dwarves. The dwarves just like maintain this stronghold on the mountains, and it's, I don't know, it's so fucking cool. And then if we go all the way up to modern times, over here you can actually see some of these kobolds down here getting invaded by humans and elves. The cruelties of paddling is definitely a goblin. They like to paddle their enemies with wooden paddles. And then everything gets kind of stagnant, and it becomes a big old flickering mess at the year 550, right? So let's... Uh-oh. Oh, no, they didn't. Yeah, we need to find out what's up with Lidloker. 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 Lidloker? They're probably very unexciting world, but... Yeah. Was a cobalt civilization of the future dimension. In year 1, Bruppudin of Lidlocker constructed Krilbus, the fated sewer. In the mid-spring of 25, the troglodyte Zim Lovecrosses became an enemy of Lidlocker. The blind cave ogre, Sorlust, martyred crowds, became an enemy of Lidlocker. It's not a very exciting history, unfortunately. But Cold Ashes, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to some legends. You know, I wonder what that blind cave ogre did to get named. Martyred crowds. Oh, this is civilizations and other entities. That's why I fudged up here. A historical troglodyte, yeah. But I need to look up that blind cave ogre. Because blind cave ogres live a lot longer than troglodytes. All right. Historical figures. Marty crowds. There you go. Sorlust, the martyred crowds, was a blind cave ogre. Born in the year 69 of unknown parentage. Settled in the Cobalt Prairie. Became an enemy of Budpruden. Became an enemy of Lidlocker. Attacked a Cobalt. Yeah, seemed to just fight with a bunch of Cobalts. Died of old age in the year 94. That's not very old. Christ, I thought that blind cave ogres lived longer. Huh. Killed 6 giant cave spiders. Couple Cobalts. Love crosses, though. A female troglodyte, born in 4, died in 67. Zim Love Crosses was a troglodyte, born in the year 4. She was of unknown parentage. She settled in the Cobalt Prairie and became an enemy of Budpruden and became an enemy of Lidlocker in the year 25. Fought with kobolds, the latter escaped unscathed. Man, fought with a lot of kobolds. And then eventually died of old age. Darn it. This is a new world. So this is a world I generated during the interview with Toady. So during the Tarn Adams interview I did, this world was generated. And I think it's fascinating personally because it's just a big cool world. So I'm using it as a Legends world for a bit. I mean, for a troglodyte, definitely a life well lived. I mean, that's like a giant spending their life beating on humans, you know? I was kind of hoping we'd get some notable kobolds, but... Let's look up Budpruden, because we have Lidlocker and Budpruden, right? And a lot of those... The troglodyte and the blind cave ogre both also became enemies of Budpruden. So maybe if we look at some things about Budpruden, we'll find something interesting. There's a kobold group of the future dimension. Budpruden of Lidlocker constructed Krilbus in the fated sewer. The troglodyte Zim became an enemy of Budpruden. The blind cave ogre Snorless attacked them, and I think just, killed them. By the year 90. Oh, no. Devoured a giant cave spider in Budpruden. Devoured a giant cave spider. 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 Good question. Unknown parentage. I mean, who the heck gave Zim a human name then? That's actually a really good question. How the heck do you end up with also Cheerbis? Cheerbis! It's a pity it's not called Cheerbits. That would have been too perfect. Cheerbis was a kobold collection of outcasts from the future dimension. The kobold Telis became a member of Cheerbits, and nothing of notable really happened there. Well, you know, it's a sad existence for kobolds because kobolds want to steal things, right? They want to perform grand heists and take things from other civilizations and steal artifacts. So it's unfortunate that they are relegated to living on such a small island. But hey, you know, generally they get exterminated so early on. Hey, they're not dead. That's kind of impressive in and of itself for kobolds. All right. Let's just pop back over to historical maps and move a few years in and try and get an idea of kind of what is where and what we're looking at. So we have the Sculpted Lash, and inside of the Sculpted Lash, we have a few fortresses here. We also have the Bulbous Salve, which is kind of the big dwarven faction. Sculpted Lash, I'm pretty sure, is a goblin civilization. The Elderfly is also a goblin civilization, and the Cruelties of Paddling are also a goblin civilization. And we have the Vice of Bulbs, which is I think also a goblin civilization. Up here we have, or maybe the Vice of Paddling might not be goblin. Then we have Lidlocker, who we were just looking at. Down here we have Frogofokuglan, which is the other kobold civilization, which has some humans move in later on. We have the Wise Unions, which are human. I actually kind of would like to know what's up with the Wise Unions. That might be an interesting. I'm actually just going to do a Reddit thread because I've been asked by the Reddit mods to post my streams more often, so I'm going to do that real quick. All right. 2 seconds, guys. I'm just going to take a quick toilet break, and then we'll continue here. All right, yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I was toilet break. You know, doing the thing that humans need to do sometimes. Okay, so let's look up a little bit about the wise unions, because this is a little human civilization. Like, let's jump to end times. They kind of get clobbered by everything. So initially, like year 10 or early years of the world, they're kind of on their own and they don't really do much. They don't really do much expanding. They just kind of sit there and then just that happens. So let's see what this looks like. I also need to look at who the barricaded realms are, because I don't know. I'm always kind of fascinated by these smaller factions. It's like, okay, what happened to you? Why didn't you expand? Why didn't you get bigger? Why did you stay so small and then not increase your faction size? Like, that doesn't seem intelligent in the slightest. So we'll find out what the heck they're doing. How do you know it's a kobold name? Literally looking at it, I know it's a kobold name. So all the other languages, Zerkis, kind of make logical sense. Whereas if you listen to my Tarn Adams interview, he actually explains how the kobold words work. Like, this is a kobold faction. Lidlocker. This is a kobold faction. Frogglevoglugun, whereas I can almost guarantee you the Sculpted Lash is goblins. Bulbous Salve is dwarves. The Mighty Seduction's definitely goblins. The Vice of Bulbs, I don't know about that one. I think that one's also goblins. Down here, these are elves. Because the Good Fragrance of Amethyst, definitely an elf name. Soaked Oaks, probably also elves. Not too sure about the Barricaded Realms. That could be human, dwarf, or goblin. Krulurakator is definitely kobold. Like, you can just tell. They're not words. They're literally how Tarn and Zach talk to their cats as kids. So it's like them just yelling at cats. But I hope that answers your question. The other factions will all have, like, readable English words as their names. Obviously, in their language, it'll be translated into their words. But they all have, like, direct translations. Whereas Cobalt is just Cobalt. And you can tell it's a kobold faction just by reading the name. Enjoy those lurks. I think that's what those are. Or are you trying to eat cats? Oh, I see. You're trying to yell at cats. I get it, Katsu. I understand the combo now. It does kind of look like it wants to eat cats. The kobold origins be forgot? No, I mean, it's not that we have to let them be forgot. It's we have to educate those uninitiated in the stories and truths behind the kobold myths and legends. All right, so let's take a look at the wise unions. What the heck happened to the wise unions? So we'll probably do, I don't know, they're catapults. Kind of, yeah. So we'll probably do a solid 40 minutes to an hour of Legends. The Wise Unions are a human civilization of the future dimension. In the midsummer of year 3, the Savannah Titan, oh no, routed the League of Cloisters. So they had the League of Cloisters and the Spattered Coalition that founded 2 different forts, or towns, I guess, townships for humans. The Savannah Titan Goto Soaked Fish, the Waxy, routed the League of Cloisters. Jesus, fuck. I turned that one down and it still scares me. Hi, Hobo. How are you? Jesus, man. The Hydra finished them off, it seems like. So it's like, that's why they never expanded beyond, like, the first 10 years, is because they built those first 2 towns, got the area, and then immediately just got nuked out of existence. How you feeling today, Hobo? Did you sleep well? I hope you did. Doing a little bit of Legends, and then we'll hop into actual stuff. So what should we look up? Should we look up the Hydra or the Savannah Titan? Goto Soaked Fish, the Waxy. Or Ulkma Apex Mite? The Hore? I think, yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Titan. Kind of with you on the Titan. Because the Titan could be anything, yeah? Goto Soaked Fish. Goto Soaked Fish, the Waxy. Savannah Titan. Goto Soaked Fish, the Waxy, was a Savannah Titan. It was the only one of its kind. A gigantic feathered scorpion fly. It has 2 long, straight horns, and it moves deliberately. Its eyes glow golden yellow, and its light brown feathers are long and sparse. Beware its poisonous bite. It was associated with rivers, plants, nature, and animals. What in the heck is a scorpion fly? The type of insect. Oh my god. Holy shit, this is a weird looking bug. So if you're arachnophobic, look away from the screen for a second. Holy crap. It's like a homunculus. It's like a mixture of a wasp, a scorpion, and it has wings. What the hell? That is an ugly thing. I thought it was some weird Dwarf Fortress hybrid at first. Is that from Australia? Good question. Jesus, man. Let me do a little bit of research. Scorpion fly. I'm on their Wikipedia page. Where are they commonly found? They're kind of from all over the place, actually. Apparently they're related to flies and mosquitoes. Huh. Now I'm looking at their mating behavior. This is Wikipedia. Where are they from? Yeah, they're from all over. They're in the Amazon. They're basically anywhere that's like warm. They're in South America. Yeah, definitely not the weirdest one, but I just learned something. Yeah, they're apparently pretty common. Huh. Yeah, I've never heard of those before. Scorpion flies, eh? Well, fuck. Oh my god. And it has a long history too. Dwarves, humans. No, Canada's too cold, from what I can tell. It's more like tropical-ish areas that it seems to reside, based on what I quickly stared at on Wikipedia. Yeah, it's still around too, all the way as recently as 547. It's enemies with like every faction. Feral Lures. Lures is your 187 notable kills. 157 other kills. What part of Canada, though? Oh, I see. They do not occur in the Western North Hemisphere. America, 13 species occur in Eastern Canada. Okay, so based the other end of Canada. Yeah, that would have been my guess because like, where I'm from over here in the northwestern portion of Canada, it's too cold and wet for a lot of these more exotic insects. But like Eastern Canada, yes. Because Eastern Canada is a lot warmer. But northwestern Canada, not so much. Or northwestern US and Canada. Yeah, fuck wasps, man. And those look just as scary as wasps. So fuck those things. Interesting. You know, they tell you that Dwarf Fortress isn't, like, is not... They don't tell you that Dwarf Fortress is an educational game, but then you learn some weird shit. All right, so what can I look up from here? Aw, striking down multiple kobolds. I've learned about a ton of stuff, Nexito. Nextio? I'm probably butchering your name totally. Yeah, I've learned about a lot of things from DF. A lot of different types of ores and stuff. The Band of Rooms. Doing some legends, yeah, CCX. This is the second world I generated while talking to Tarn. Killed a lot of zombies too. I want to know what Sturlair Kinburns, the human once resting hunter. Once resting hunter. That is a badass name. Born in the year 20. Strahlar Kinborns, the once resting hunter, was born in the year 20 of unknown parentage, became the High Doctor of the League of Trusses, fought in the Crazy Attack, an assault on Nightmare Grieving. The Savannah Titan, the Wacky Titan attacked Strahlar. Strahlar was struck down by the Waxy Titan and was brought back from the dead by the human mummy. Lippy Strasmerged as a once resting hunter in lean bunches. They, I guess, then just stay in lean bunches. It was 190 something. It was almost as many as notable. Like 300 total kills. Yeah, I don't see many mummies about. Let's look up that mummy. Straws merged. Straws merged. Lippy Straws merged was born in the year 133. He was the eldest son of Akul, Sweet Stordard, and Bekat Burial Bridges. Childhood friends settled in Birchtrims. Became friends due to a shared history after a scholarly lecture in Birchtrims. Oh, became friends with a goblin. And then became friends with the hedgehog man Zothel Bristlethroats due to an interest in history after a scholarly lecture. Found a lover, got married, then found another lover and got married. Broke up, or found another lover and got married. Broke up with somebody. And then in the year 212, Lippy died of old age, was entombed in Scalded Handle within the Swift Tomb. Sounds like this person was some sort of scholar or learned person, because they went to a bunch of scholarly lectures. Yeah, same. Feel like same. Hedgehog Man, I immediately think of Sonic. I'm not even particularly big on Sonic. Not even particularly big on Sonic. He's pretty short. All right, so in the year 215, Lippy was bent towards the supernatural vengeance upon the dwarf Lycott Hatchet Councils. The leopard man, once resting hunter, was brought back from the dead by Lippy. Okay, brought back an undead army. Animated a bunch of bodies. And then Thora, massive lark, ambushed Lippy. And fought and subdued Lippy. And Lippy was convicted of treason by the League of Tresses and sentenced to death. And executed in Scalded Handle. Wow. So this human was born pretty early on in the world, lived a full life, got married half a dozen times, and broke up with only one or two of those, and had a lovely life of polygamy, and died of old age of natural causes and was entombed, and then reanimated. Question is, who actually reanimated you? Was it one of your friends? Was disturbed from eternal rest by the dwarf Lycott Hatchet Councils. Is that anybody who popped up in your life? I don't think so. That would have been really cool if it was like a childhood friend or something. Nah, it doesn't. Also, this person was the lawgiver of the Barricaded Realms. Interesting. So the Barricaded Realms are a human faction then. It's interesting that this person was the lawgiver too. Ruled from the Tower of Passes. So you were a lawgiver. You acquired breach trims by... oh, I see. Tempted Rang was acquired in breach trims by Lippy as a symbol of authority within the Barricaded Realms. Yeah, when you say it's like disturbed, it does kind of read like it was one of those, oh, something just happened to startle this dwarf and he raised him from the dead. The Creations of Pregnancy is the name of the faction that he became the warlord after being disturbed and raised from the dead. Although, even though he disturbed him from rest and did it by accident, still bent him on vengeance towards the dwarf Lycott Hatchet Councils. So, like, imagine accidentally raising a mummy from the dead and then being immediately... Like, you accidentally raise a mummy from the dead, and then the mummy tries to kill you. It's like a series of specific movies from a certain year that I used to really like that they made a bad set of sequels to. Means he was grave robbing? Interesting. I guess that would explain the being bent towards vengeance thing. That's cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen grave robbers before. The fact that he was executed, though, I think is really interesting. Can I just say, the object of ardent worship of this character is Kima Borseason, the Scaly Lobster. What became of Lycott? Hatchet Councils. Died in the year 215. Lycott Hatchet Councils was a dwarf? Was a dwarf born in 159. He was of unknown parents. He decided to become a mercenary operating out of Cudgelpale. Okay. Lycott plotted to steal Ashroars under the influence of the goblin Inna, Thimble Aunts. Ashroars was stolen from the Swift Tomb in Scaled and Handled by Lycott. Lycott disturbed the Swift Tomb in Scaled and Handled. The human mummy Lippy Strasmerged was disturbed from eternal rest by Lycott as a mummy in Scalded Handle. Lippy Strasmerged was bent towards supernatural vengeance upon Lycott. Ashroars was offered to the goblin Inna by Lycott. Lycott was hired to fight in the Scaled Siege in defense of grisly pickets. Lycott's lower arm was ripped by Tun and struck down by Tun in Gristle Wickets. So basically, robbed a grave, and then the same year was hired to fight in a war and died as part of it. I mean, died on a different job because was contracted out as a mercenary band after doing the grave robbery. So was a mercenary grave robber, went and robbed the grave, was going to go sell the artifact, sold the artifact, got hired for another job, and died on the job before the mummy could get their proper vengeance. And then the mummy was then put to death for supernatural crimes, I would assume. Let's see what the artifact was. What is worth that kind of effort? Ashroars. What was that mummy defending? Oh, wow. This thing had quite the history, too. Ashroars was a legendary dwarf bone gauntlet. This is a dwarf bone left gauntlet. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. It is encrusted with rectangular cinnabar cabochons, and on the item is an image of a grackle in badger bone. Ashroars was created in the sinful humor by the dwarf Aggo Lysterers. Ashroars was claimed by Aggo and was later looted from the sinful humor by the dwarf Nagokeng Maelgendrags after murdering the dwarf Aggo Lysterers. Was claimed, moved around a bunch, claimed and moved around a bunch by a bunch of different goblins. When did it end up in the tomb, though? Because that wouldn't have been until closer to 215. Oh, interesting. There you go. So in the year 215, Ashroars was... when was it put in there? So... year 214, Ashroars was claimed by Goblin... Claimed by a goblin, claimed by a goblin. The dwarf Lycott Hatchet Councils plotted to steal Ashroars under the influence of the goblin Inna Thimble Ounce. Okay. Hey, Ira. Jar of Jam. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Just reading some legends. It's a little bit of Age of Wonders music in the background. What are you playing today? Were you CDDAing? Yeah, you were. You were CDDAing. Oh, CDDA was good. That game scares me, I'll be honest. Reading a plot about a dwarf named Lycott Hatchet Councils who plotted to steal Ashroars, accidentally rezzed a mummy, and then went and died in a mercenary job afterwards. But the mummy kind of came back from the dead and then raised up an army and then was put to death for psychological and supernatural treason. So, things are going good so far. I'm finding fun stories. Ashroars was offered to the goblin, Inna, by the dwarf Lycott Hatchet Councils, who then went off and died. And then it looks like 1 billion people plotted to steal it. The goblin Seto plotted to steal it. Seto still plotted to steal it. Yeah, Seto plotted to steal this thing from the year 217 all the way up. Jesus. Like, this was his life's work. All the way up to year 309. Almost 100 years plotting to steal this thing. And then was confiscated by a dwarf. So this goblin plotted to steal it for like 100 years. And then about 20 years later, a dwarf got it. Was made a family heirloom by that dwarf, and then lost. Very dwarfy. Good day, spaceship rat. A gauntlet made of dwarf bone. Question is, whose dwarf? What was the name of the dwarf that was made into the artifact? That's the real question that we all want to know. I want to know what happened to that dwarf. Wilderness game with no monsters in tech. So, Unreal World is what you were pretending to play while playing CDDA? I feel like that would be entertaining, actually. Seto is indeed obsessed with this thing. Back to plotting to steal it after it got lost. That or like Seto must either A, be obsessed with this artifact, or B, very indecisive. He's enjoys planning to steal things, but doesn't actually do it. Ashroars was confiscated by a dwarf and offered to the Doctrine of Deceivers by the dwarf. Was stored in the Abbey of Jackal in Palmild. Seto continues to plot to steal it. Seto plotted to steal it, approached by the goblin Utis. So, like, he's being told by this other goblin to steal it. On repeat. All goblins are immortal. They're like elves. They don't die of natural causes. They can only die of being stabbed to dead. Which is why they tend to take over the world, because they're overpowered and immortal. But they breed really slowly, so if they take over a dwarven civilization, the dwarven civilization will often rapidly become mostly goblin because the dwarves outbreed the goblins. Basically, the dwarves are a disease and we need to kill them. I mean, what? There's some weird shit in CDDA, which is part of what turns me off of CDDA. I like games with a little bit of consistency to them. Like, I'd rather run into weird shit in CUD than CDDA, because at least the weird shit in CUD is, like, consistent to the world of CUD, whereas CDDA is just like, cat girls, for some reason. Ashroars is stolen from the crazy bee tombs? Huh. So it looks like a goblin finally managed to actually steal it. The goblin Seto plotted to steal it as approached by the goblin Utis to handle the matter directly through a third party via goblin Burr. It was claimed by a different goblin from afar. I mean, that's what it is. It's a big old moddable sandbox, right? I should just say fuck it and play Unreal World at some point. Poor Seto was never actually able to get this thing. Ashroars was then stolen. Yeah. The goblin Uta was... and man, the goblins have just been obsessed with this thing. Ashroars. There's too many extremely good, endlessly long games in existence. There's too many. Like, it's... that's all I can say. Like, why would you ever pay money for games when there's billions of freeware games that are infinitely replayable? That you can just fund through Patreon, or if that. Yeah, totally. They can't help it. Well, that and it's made of dwarf bone. The goblin who... Seto? The crew yells? Nope. Was one of the first of her kind. She's the warlord of the Deb Obstacles. Assumed the identity the aura of beaching. So was plotting to steal a lot of things, actually. No, she didn't. She was plotting to steal it under the influence of other people. So she's gullible. She's in politics and she's gullible and getting bribed and told by other people. And she's also like kidnapping people. She plotted to abduct Balsa Demon Rush, approached by saying hatred tumors to handle the matter directly through a third party. Yeah, she was interrogated by humans, trying to get information out of her. Man, this goblin had a busy fucking life. Yeah, plotting to steal lots of things. Unsuccessfully as well. I'm not seeing a lot of successful steals. She really wanted to become a fashion consultant. No, it seems like she just accepted a lot of bribes and to try and steal things. And didn't do a very good job of it. Yeah. Exactly. She did a lot of things, but not her actual job. And she wasn't very good at all the things that she did. That's incredible. And this, everybody, is why generating worlds in Dwarf Fortress takes forever. Let's just see what the last thing this goblin did was. Because they're still alive. Probably still in a position of power. Yeah, still getting approached by people. Many times a year. Yeah, still at it. Still at it. Ura was an object of ardent worship. Related entities. The cruelties of Padding as a criminal. The Dead Obstacles member and the Warlord of Dead Obstacles, 143 to present. Considered a criminal by the cruelties of Paddling, which is a goblin civilization. Probably stole artifacts from them. That's interesting. I like stuff like that. I mean, goblins in politics might as well just be called corruption. I mean, good question. Why are they letting Seto run them? If I remember correctly, that's a pretty big faction, too. As in, there's just a lot of them. You ever just, like, wonder to yourself, how the heck did I get onto a email list for X company? Like, why the hell am I getting emails from King's Coast Coffee Company? I never gave them my email. Let's look up Ura, the object of ardent worship, and then we'll go to the cruelties of paddling. It's a human goddess. Ura was a deity that occurs in the myths of the barricaded realms. Ura was most often depicted as a female human and was associated with torture and death. So our goblin here worshipped the god of torture and death, which is fitting for a goblin. So the cruelties of paddling was a goblin civilization. Barricaded Realms is a human civilization. Which one were they? Am I blanking here? Dead Obstacles. This one. Muthrondun. Muthrondun! Anyway, I had to do that. Human civilization of the outcasts of the future dimension. Of outcasts of the future dimension. Oh, interesting. So the human initially became the warlord. But it seems like they kind of got taken over by humans. Or the humans kind of got taken over by goblins. Ablarasta, how you doing? Happy Saturday. Death and torture. It's fitting. It's the BDSM god of leather and whips. Or something. Well, that's interesting. Because the Dead Obstacles was a human collection of outcasts that very quickly got taken over by goblins. The human Nithin ruled from the meal of spreading, the Dead Obstacles. The parched seducers began operating at the direction of the Dead Obstacles under the leadership of the human. Okay. Then at that point, a bunch of goblins. So the parched seducers must have been like a goblin mercenary group or something. Because at that point, within the next 10 years, a bunch of goblins became the representative, a lieutenant, and our goblin Seto became a warlord. I mean, everything goblin sounds like kink culture, frankly. Let's be honest now, Pablo. The parched seducers were fully incorporated into the Dead Obstacles under the leadership of the goblin Seto. Yeah. So it was a band of human outcasts that began working with a goblin mercenary crew, I'm assuming. I'll look up what they were in a second. And then became like a theft outfit, basically. The question is... Parched Seducers was the name of the group that was operating alongside of them, primarily Goblin. But let's find out, like, how exactly they ended up that way. And did they get destroyed, or are they still operating? Because they seemed to mostly be just, like, existing as a way to... Yeah, no, they're all embezzling funds and stealing money and... Damn. Yeah, no, this is basically just, like, a bandit group. All right, parched seducers. Was a goblin collection of outcasts. Okay, so a selection of goblin outcasts. So it was a bunch of human refugees combined with a bunch of goblin refugees, and the goblins took over, and they just operated as like a group that stole artifacts. Which is what caused our dwarf friend to raise that mummy. Which is what caused that army of the dead to be raised, which is what caused the first person we looked at to be made into a night terror, and what caused that mummy to get executed in the after being raised again from the dead. Dwarven politics, or Dwarf Fortress politics. That was a nice little set of adventures, I think, or legends, rather. I'm happy with that. Are you guys happy with that? They can't even steal. Dude, they're... Well, here's the thing, right? Because they're immortal, right? They have a lot longer... they have a much longer amount of time to practice... what's the word I'm looking for here? Who is that scaly lobster deity? I was just about done. But we can look at the scaly lobster deity as well. It's a human goddess. Kima Boar Season, the scaly lobster, was a deity that occurs in the barricaded realms. Kima was most often depicted as a female human who was associated with plants. That's boring. But yeah, no, it's fun to just kind of like poke legends a little bit and find a little story like that, you know? Like Well, why was that human that seemed to live a relatively happy life rezzed as a mummy? Well, because of a grave robber. Well, why was that grave robber there? Well, obviously it was because of those two groups of refugees that were outcast from their towns that banded together to steal artifacts. Paid some dwarven mercenary to go and steal an artifact, and he raised a mummy. I've never even seen a mummy in the game. But anyway, I think it's time for us to